the beginning of 2018 for our persons user group PUG meeting. Welcome, everybody. The sound checks are out of the way. The audio visual works, so hopefully for those that are watching the recast of this, it's always advisable that when you do get notified of a PUG meeting, you send in some email questions, and we have a few good questions, number one. B, we have a process of what's going to help make your trading experience on TradeStation a little bit more efficient. And I think today's session is going to help a lot of both, maybe some advanced traders already know this, but as well some of the new people to TradeStation's platform. So we have a lot in store for today, as well as some special announcements, and we're going to get right through it. So because this is a person's user group and because this is a private meeting, I could put out a risk disclosure, so I'll do it in an articulated manner. Trading is risky. Stops do not guarantee your loss, and past performance is not indicative of future results. So therefore, we've gotten some compliance out of the way if I was under compliant review, which I'm not, but let's just keep it all on the level. Special announcements, and I know I've alluded to this a couple times, but the Trilogy scans are here. And we'll talk about the Trilogy scan just a little bit today. New files are going to be sent this weekend. So we're hoping to get the file to everyone's hands with the instructions, how to load the file, what to do. Most of you are familiar with how to load a file. It's real easy. This is for the PUG VIPers. We're going to get the Trilogy scans. So we'll share that with you in just a minute. So as far as special announcement, we also have next Wednesday, the Algo class. So we're going to have the first of the Algo class of 2018, and the Algo Optimizer, which is coming out with its release. The file will be named PUG-1-18-18. I think that's kind of cool because it is the 14th version that we've dealt with, and so it is PUG-1-18. And you will be able to switch. For those who have the Person Algo Optimizer currently, when we send you the file, it will not override any of your current system settings. It'll give you an option to trade either system. And of course, you have to optimize the new version and maybe go through, but it'll allow you to incorporate whether or not you wanted an additional filtering methodology of taking last conditional change LCC breakouts like a Trilogy, for example. It'll also give us a little bit better way of running optimization for start and end trading times. So there's a couple other cool versions, and if you do have Person's Algo Optimizer, you want to be here live next Wednesday, January 24th for that Algo class. So since this is on the topic of special announcements, what is special announcements? You know, it's been in the making. Many of you, I wish timeline, when you set a timeline, that you can meet that time schedule, and a lot of things that were taking place in 2017. We're hoping to work with a fund and launch a fund, and that's actually come to fruition, and it's going to be launched. We wanted to get it off before the first quarter of March of 2018. It's probably going to be April because there are a few holidays upcoming. There were some delays. There's some travel things that are happening between me and two other partners. So with that said, a partnership has been reached and it is to be launched. We're shooting for April only because we would like to get it. Easter is the first day, so the Holy Week. It's kind of a weird calendar. So for everyone to understand, if we were trying to launch something in March with earnings season, current obligations, getting the Algo Optimizer off the table, the final version to everyone, work through all those issues. Obviously, let's address the 800-pound gorilla in the room. TradeStation set up a new, last week, update to combat a Microsoft update, and probably 40,000 people crashed. Unfortunately, they may have been able to say, listen, we crashed, it's not the third party's fault, and quite frankly, many of you heard different versions, but at the end of the day, we're going to work through today how to avoid problems and get your system running better with the John Person indicator. And for the record, we did not have a problem. It was TradeStation, and I think everyone knows that. fake news or not, we all have to work through it, and we're here to help everybody. So with that said, to launch a fund in the first quarter when you have a holiday week, the last week of March is, by the way, a holiday. So it is Holy Week. It's so Sunday is April. It's kind of weird. Easter is on April 1st this year. April Fool's Day is Easter. This is not a joke. I'm dead serious if you look ahead at your calendar. So we plan to launch by after that holiday, Person Asset Management Managed Fund. And it's going to be a couple things. So just to give you an idea, this is a VIX Trader Performance. This is not a promotion for that, but this is just to give you an idea about what's being launched in a fund is in the Person Algo Optimizer. The Person Algo Optimizer is based off the lifetime indicators that I've created. This is kind of wild, right? So if everyone says, well, can I make money using this? This is a performance chart, statistics, and all the relevant information on the VIX that we've been using since initially started last June, by the way. Initial deposit and current account balance, by the way. And this is the activity statement, which don't get upset. It's not run through Thinkorswim, of course, but just to share with everybody, this is a pretty wild rate of return. And as far as mark to market and the ending value. So this is why we would be running a fund and based on the products at hand. So when someone says, is it working? If it's not working for you, you better get your question sent in to me because it is working and it's doing dynamically well. So let's move on now that we got our special announcements out of the way. All right. Now, for those that are going to be getting the file, the PUG VIP, what is the scan consist of? It is a trilogy setup. I know I've already given this out before in a kind of a preview, but the trilogy scans are sitting right on my machine right this second. What is not on my machine right this second is the launch of the radar screen. And I didn't want to insert the file personally, even though I wanted to do it today for the PUG group. I didn't want to cause a problem, so I have not launched and inserted the file for myself. So that's why you guys will get the file by Saturday. Knock on wood, of course. And what this is going to have is just this little blank label row right here is going to have a trilogy, and you'll differentiate for VIPers between high close doji and the daily signals for those that have access for it. All right. So what I want to get into today for the PUG meeting, get rid of the special announcements now that we've gotten through that. It's exciting news, and I know a lot of you guys like to keep in touch as to what's happening and what's making this thing work. If I was sitting on your side of the screen, I would say, hey, John, I've got your lifetime, and is it helping? Is it working? Are things coming together? And the answer is certainly absolutely. I think when you start from a top-down approach, and whether you're a momentum trader, a value trader, a day trader, a swing trader, whatever you are, and for whatever markets you are trading, whether it's stocks, futures, and even now Bitcoin, if it is. I think that the indicators and the methodology in which we have put things together by looking at breadth of the market from the advanced decline page, by looking at S&Ps, which I think is pretty important myself in as far as trying to figure out when is this market going to reverse. And, you know, it's really hard to see a market crash and burn to go down when the breadth can't even cross over a moving average. That's kind of an important idea, especially even in the Russell. So, which, by the way, I want to address that just to give you my take on how I read this. If you notice, this is for the small cap Russell. If you look at where today's breadth reading is, if I increase the viewership on this and highlight it a little bit better, you will probably note that we have a new high in the advanced decline in the Russell, and it broke out of the old high, number one. Number two, and price did not. This would give a signal indication that the Russell could start to see some further advance because even the volume was up. So tomorrow, which will be Thursday, the 18th, if the market does not, on the close, if the price doesn't move and the advanced decline stays here or stays near its new high, it would signal to me that the market is getting ready for a springboard, and I wouldn't rule out 160, 170. On the other side of the coin, how I use the breadth advanced decline is somehow we start to see the market trade through today's opening range, and the market starts to fail or follow through to the downside and break this, what we would call a last conditional change candle, this one right here, and below that support, and it would need to come through and break below the advanced decline. So it's comparing the advanced decline with each individual candle or day's movement. If the advanced decline breaks and price accompanies that break on decent volume, KD, bar the door. Now, what if that doesn't happen tomorrow? What if it happens 3 weeks from now? Whatever, that's how we would utilize watching for a combination of price, breadth, and volume confirming the price move. So if more stocks are going down and breaking below what was old support on the charts, if the current price right now breaks below that line in the sand, guess what? So should the breadth. If the breadth or the advanced decline does not, it signifies it's a weak breakdown. So that's one way of giving great confirmation of what's happening within the various stock indices and how I personally use looking at the breadth analysis. It's been quite some time since we have gotten a breakdown of the advanced decline. And when I say quite some time, it was like late October, November, and it's since then the breadth purple line is above both the moving average. Overbought, sure, and it can get overbought, and I tell you what, when this party ends, it's going to bring a heck of a, I mean, if history repeats itself, a heck of a hangover when this thing decides to give it up, that's for sure. But our job is not to wonder why. Ours is just to follow the rules and trade by the rules. So with that said, how is this an instrumental tool, and what can we do to make it more efficient? All right, rule number one. Let's look at the nomenclature and go up to the tab called File. The nomenclature, first and foremost, I said go back up to the File. There we go. We have under File, you have New, so you can open a new trading app window, you can open a new workspace, and you can open a desktop. Those are three terms, and they're not there for mysterious purposes. They're three terms that you need to know. What is a desktop? A desktop is the entire package, your entire screen of TradeStation. It's not the desktop of what you think is your desktop of your computer. It is the desktop of TradeStation. Now, within that, you have a desktop, and at the bottom, you have a desktop with folders, tabs at the bottom here. And right now, you can see that I'm on Advanced Trading System folder. That was a folder called Advanced Decline. And then I have another folder of scanners. So those folders right there are actually called workspaces. So within a desktop, I have folders called workspaces. And within a workspace, and currently I'm opened on Advanced Trading System workspace, I have multiple windows. Now, this would be called an individual or independent chart. TradeStation nomenclature would consider this as a window. Why? Because if you name something a chart, close the graph, here's the funny thing. I have right here radar screen. It's not a graph, but it's a window, correct? So currently I have windows within a workspace. All right. Now, on your radar screen, you have several file tabs at that. You have stocks long-term, stocks short-term, futures long-term, futures short-term. So, for any computer, let me just let you know that TradeStation is running these analysis on your radar screen live, whether it's a 15-minute chart that you've selected, a 60-minute chart, whatever you selected. Your short-term is working in the background. Your short-term stocks is working in the background constantly. So it's constantly scanning or updating for signals, new signals, live before the market or that time period closes. So for equities, I use 60 minutes for a defining moment. All right? Now, the more I have open on my radar screen, the more resources I am requesting or demanding from my computer. So you need a good computer, number one. That's obvious. And if you don't have a really good computer, you better make sure that you do not have multiple applications open. If you have multiple applications open, you are draining your resources. So there, number one, could lie the problem. How do you make things run more efficient and smoother? If you do not trade futures, then close the file tab or delete the futures entirely. And that way you've eliminated this thing trying to run scans. That's number one. I'll repeat. If you do not trade futures or commodities or day trade, and you do not want these, remember, you're now asking us for futures short-term of about 49 contracts and futures long-term 47, 49 contracts. We're asking the computer, there's 100 stocks or 100, not commodities, there's 100 names here that we're asking to do analysis on, and that's draining resources. So if you do not trade commodities, then you can get rid of those two file tabs within the radar screen. If you're trading stocks, short-term or long-term, just remember, when you have more stocks open on a particular page, such as the long-term. Now, I'm getting close to a significant number of 700 stocks on one radar screen, which is about, you get about maybe 1,000, and then you start draining resources, even if you have a 64 megabyte or 64 meg of memory. Some computers only have 16 or 32, and that's not going to be enough, especially if you have your email open on one computer, a company office accounting system open, other trading platforms. Remember, this is just TradeStation. So if you have Interactive Brokers, Thinkorswim, Fidelity, Schwab, if you have other platforms open, other analytics tools, all of that is draining your resource in the background. Now, I always recommend do not have a computer that has other applications. Genesis and TradeStation will drain resources. That's a fact. Genesis, TradeStation, Thinkorswim, Schwab, Interactive Broker, it's going to drain some resources. Genesis, Thinkorswim, TradeStation, Interactive Broker, Schwab, emails, and other applications is going to significantly drain resources. But folks, if you have more than one of these radar screen applications open at the same time, remember what you're asking for. 700 plus another 400 plus another 100. Now you're getting into how many? 700 plus 400, 1,100, 1,200 stocks I'm asking this thing to analyze and scan. So if you have more than one desktop open with more than one radar screen open at the same time, you may want to try to condense what you're asking each radar screen to do, because over analysis, it won't be able to handle it and you will crash more often. So I wanted to make sure that we're all kind of in tune with that. In addition, I've worked with an individual who did not know the difference, and I think this is important. This was really important. It was a great learning lesson for me to understand what others are doing and how it may help others. Now, if you notice here, I didn't put marijuana stocks. I've just put it, I spell it like it is. It's pot stocks. All right? You got Scott's Miracle Grow and a few others that are on the hard to borrow list. Now, the funny thing is, with TradeStation, there's a lot of stuff on a hard to borrow list, and really famous companies and big companies at that do plenty of trades, but it's TradeStation. A lot of stuff, that's what HB stands for. Herbalife, for example, it's on a hard to borrow list. The Cracker Barrel, that's the name of it. Cracker Barrel, hard to borrow list. I mean, they don't trade that much to begin with, 300,000 shares, but you'd be surprised as to what's on a hard to borrow list, which means when you go to sell something short with TradeStation, it's going to be on the hard to borrow list. So a lot of different ETFs, even USO. How do you figure USO on a hard to borrow list, as you can see, with 14,988 average 10-day volume on a hard to borrow list? So again, one of the things that I always tell people is you have to understand what these things mean, and then, you know, double check as well. Maybe you don't want to trade everything through TradeStation. Use Thinkorswim, but this is a great analytic tool. If it keeps crashing on you, or if there is a crash, we have to analyze why there is a crash. So first and foremost, if you were going to develop your own list of stocks, here's what you really need to do. Right-click on an open space and insert label row. You need to label what you want. So if you want Bitcoin trades, or if you want to call this option expiration, do so using what's called a label row. Because if I go option expiration and I type it into the row, look what it just popped up. Data request failed, account not enabled for this data. And if I start putting in like 2-21-26 and I start putting in certain labels without a label row, look what's coming up. Data request failed, incorrect symbol. So what happens is, or what can happen is, when I close my TradeStation down, and in the morning or after your scans are done, or when you open up TradeStation again and get back online, basically it's now going to scan and look to populate all these symbols, and it's going to have a problem, and it's going to slow things down because it's going to be searching for option expiration or a symbol 2-21-26, which, as we all know, does not exist. So make sure that you make a label row. And how do you find that? Simply right-click on a blank row and insert a label row. So once you have a label row, then just left-click on it, left-click once, twice, double-click on it, delete label row, and just start typing whatever you want. So you want my favorite momentum. And, well, that's too much. Go back and just say momentum. You can type over it, and then I want everyone to realize what I've just done. I've created, and I can now create, a new list of stocks that I want to analyze for end of day. So whether a momentum stock is ROKU, whether a momentum stock is Momo, whether it's Baidu, whether it's MSFT, Microsoft now, whether it's AMZN, whether it's AAPL, those, if that's what you're watching as your momentum stocks, then now that you've created your new label row, and now that you've created the stocks that you put in there, do not get sidetracked. Immediately go up to File, and I want you to hit Save the Workspace. This is your workspace, all right? Save the workspace immediately. Why do you do that? Real simple. Let's say something happens and you, as a human being, forget, don't see, you're in a hurry, and you go to close out of TradeStation, which would be to close out your desktop, is the far upper region X. So I have to bring it into focus for you. This is the X that closes out the desktop. This is the X that will close out your radar screen, which is a window. Okay? So let's say that right now we created thoughts and observations in all these stocks, and all I did was go up to File, and I want to hit save my workspace. Now, something happens. Uh-oh. It crashed, and I go to close out of TradeStation. Now, or TradeStation says something's wrong and it needs to be shut down. Do I want to save any change right now? No, because if I save right now, if I save any changes right now, when I go back to open up this desktop and that workspace, the radar screen window will be gone. Why? Because I'm telling it to save what just disappeared. So cancel this. If my 15-minute chart, if I hit that X and I close out of TradeStation, do I want to save the changes right now? No, because if I do, I'm saving the fact that I closed out of the radar screen, and I'm saving the fact that I just got rid of a chart. So before you hit save, if you've already saved your work, which you should do, as soon as you do your work or you add a stock or delete a stock and you save your workspaces, you shouldn't, if something closes out behind your back or you don't know or something happened, you should not save the changes because maybe there was a file corrupt or window corrupt or something happened on a chart and it closed out. If you go and TradeStation experiences and needs to shut down, it says, do you want to save all this work? The minute you say yes, you've saved the changes that deleted your workspace and your chart. I hope that, so basically, I just want to hit no. I don't want to save that. Do I want to save changes here? I'm going to cancel this, so I'm stopping everything. Now, how do I get that window back? How do I get everything that was where it was? First and foremost, I'm going to go close the workspace. Do I want to save these changes? No, I do not. So how do I get it back? I now have a desktop. I have a desktop, and I've got my VXX, I got my day trade, I got my advanced decline, I got my scanner. Where did my main page go? It's gone. I go up to File. I want to open a workspace. And the workspace I want to open is JP, Advanced Trading System. That's the radar screen. So hit open. Bingo. Everything just came back the way I saved originally, not saving the crash. My radar screen's back, and guess what? My 15-minute chart's back. So that's the proper way and the nomenclature that we want. And as you can tell, it's taken a little bit to fill in the blanks here. And one of the main reasons is because I'm asking it to refresh almost 1,200 stocks or 1,200 symbols. All right? So basically what you want to do, and it'll start to fill in just a second here. So for users, number one, so that you do not continue to run resources down. Now, we supplied a very, I think, decent list of sector ETFs, leveraged ETFs, volatility products, and subsectors listed in the stock tab. And then as through time, I add to mine or I delete to mine. Now, if you have a stock like Coach, so Coach, for example, if you're familiar with the product under Consumer Discretionary, XLY, and it is, if you double click on the header, you can do things by alphabetic. And I don't think I deleted it, but I don't think I added it, but because it's called Tapestry. And if we go into this section right here, and I insert a blank row, and I go, I think it's TPR or TRP, I forget which. Let's double check. It's Tapestry. Why did Coach change their name or their stock symbol from COH to TPR? Because they bought Kate Spade. They merged Kate Spade with Coach, and they call their name now Tapestry. Now, I just added in Consumer Discretionary Tapestry. So I just did something new that I want to keep forever. So I should go up immediately to my file and save that in my workspace. Boom. If right now TradeStation crashes on me, guess what? As long as I don't say save the change of the crash, it will go back to the save that I want, which is right here by adding Tapestry to the name. Okay? So I can go back and I can say, well, do I have it in here? Maybe I forgot to put it. Well, I have it. It's just in retail. So now I've put Tapestry twice, one in consumer discretionary and one in retail. So I already have Tapestry. So if I don't want to keep it into one subfolder, then I can take it out so I don't have the same stock in multiple subsectors, meaning XRT, consumer discretionary, or maybe if I scroll all the way down, I've added to thoughts and observations, or I've ordered it in the trade room, or seasonal sells, or seasonal buys, or the list that I've created, or crypto FX, guns and ammo, and weekly thoughts and positions. So more or less, I can go through, and what I need to do is maintain my system. So if a stock, for example, if you go up and down your list and you have Coach and you have a bunch of stocks that have either been delisted, bought out, like Kite Pharmaceuticals, it got bought out. So what happens is every time, unless you go in and delete those symbols that are no longer valid, every time you open up your TradeStation, it wants to search for the prices and the symbol and analyze that stock under your radar screen. So clean it up, delete, hit delete, get rid of the bad data ones, and as soon as you do, file and immediately save your workspace. I hope I didn't depress it too long and not save it, so let's save it. So there it is. So for running your product more efficiently, by knowing the definition of a desktop, a workspace, and a window, then you'll have a better chance of cleaning up dead or no longer needed symbols, get rid of what's not needed, get rid of the clutter like spring cleaning, and your system, your program will run much more efficiently. Okay?
All right, now another very important element if we want to make our computer work more efficiently with the TradeStation platform. We need to know what's working in our computer if things get too slow. If you have too many stocks up on your radar screen, if you're asking it to do too much, it's going to cause issues and may crash. So simply, if you want to know what else is working on in the background of your computer, simply hit Control-Alt-Delete, and you will get a task manager. And then when you get a task manager, you can go up and figure out what's going on and working in the background. If you have certain things, Microsoft Outlook, if you have a virus protection that's double running and has not, it may hinder some of the operations and maybe overload your memory and your CPU usage. So that's another thing that we need to be constantly aware of. Now, also, what we want to look for is when we take a look at our radar screen, and my radar screen is now loaded up to, as you can see, approximately 700 different stocks, and I have, well, for the lack of better words, pot stocks, the medical or the marijuana industry. We have stocks that we've talked about in the trade room, for example, the weekly thoughts and observations, positions that have been entered in on behalf of the thoughts and observations. I also keep seasonal buys, seasonal sells. For example, we have crypto FX, a whole listing of stocks there, guns and ammo. That's something that's been there for a while, and other positions that I might have on that are just specifically for the weekly thoughts and observation. I mentioned. And the thing is, if you'll notice here, you don't see a blank line on my computer. You don't see a bad quote. I go through if a stock gets bought out or delisted. So, for example, if I go and insert a blank row and I type in KITE, some of you may know that Kite Pharmaceutical was bought out. So if you have something like a symbol that used to be there but is no longer there, simply delete this symbol. So just hit delete and immediately go up and hit File and then Save the workspace. Because every time I make a change I want, don't forget to go immediately up and save it. That's what's really the key element of keeping your quotes to get and your equipment making it a little bit smoother operating system. So as I go and scroll up here, you will note that I don't have a lot of those at all. Now, I think another function is just review. Find out what is working on in your background of your computer. Simply Control-Alt-Delete Task Manager, and then turn off anything that may be if your system is working too slow. That'll alert you to what is working in the background. Now, as far as scrolling to the top, if I wanted something that some of you may know, if I hit and double-click on the symbol, what I'm about to show you is just how to, the fact that your columns up here, whether it's interval, last, net change, and I'm sure most of you know this, but if you didn't, if you double click on symbol, it collates the symbols alphabetically between, keyword here, between your label rows. So this says sector ETF, and as we go down, it has separated by leveraged ETFs. If I, as you can see here, under leveraged ETFs, if I double click, it goes from Doug to UUP. Doug got collated to the bottom in descending order, and then UUP. And if I double click, it goes in ascending order from A to Z. So it will not collate. When you double click on the symbol, it will not collate the label rows alphabetically. So if you notice here, we have several that are not in alphabetical order, like volatility products, but these are the volatility products. And then I've just keep it because it, number one, our main product that we trade with the Algo Optimizer is the VXX, and that's an ETN or an exchange traded note. It trades off the VIX futures. TVIX, SVXY, these are all short-term volatility indexes that we can trade. On a side note, many of you already know that the volatility index is just an index. As you notice here, there's no volume. There's because it does not trade. It's not a tradable product. That's what these products are for. So the point that I want to make is we can, to make better use out of our product, I know I talked with several people in the last few weeks that weren't familiar. They thought everything was locked, and they didn't understand that they could look at things and collate in order. And you can, based on your preference of what's important. If you want to know within a sector or a sector ETF. So if we click on left click and try to capture the window and scroll down, and you will notice that we have a lot of different sector ETFs, right? So these are the sector ETFs that I particularly pay attention to. I can do it by alphabetic, or descending, ascending order. I can go by net change. I can double click in percent change, or I can also do it by relative strength. For those that have been to mentoring or have the VIP package, you have the person's market catcher. And if I expand the little window here, you could see where it says person's market catcher. What does this represent? Well, quite frankly, all this represents is the red would signify that this particular product, which is consumer staples, is lagging behind the performance in relationship to the S&P 500, and since the moving average is yellow, it means it is moving down and has been moving down. The moving average being yellow means this did not just turn negative, it's been negative, right? If we have like the KIE, and most of you know that KIE is the insurance sector ETF. It's fuchsia, and the moving average now is white. What does that signify? It was lagging, it's now improving, and the moving average of that improvement is moving up and turning white. So there's the difference between the relative stages of the strength meter, so to speak. So let's take a quick look at KIE, if we may. See, and I just highlight my mouse over KIE, and guess what? It pops up and tells you exactly what it is in case you forgot. And so when we take a look at the KIE, we're going to look at the volume indicator and the relative strength. All right, now let's just go and expand the window, and here we go. All right, so now what do we have on our screen? This is a daily chart of KIE. Simply put, you can see that as the insurance companies, since approximately November, even though they have gone, you could see, sideways for most of, well, let's review, November, December, and into January. So you could see that as this market or this particular segment or leg to the upside was going up, it was starting to lose its relative strength to the market, meaning the market was doing better than insurance companies. Insurance company was just sideways, not doing anything. It was in a trading range, as you can see, and that's what the relative strength comparing the performance of this particular item to the S&P 500. Now, it was weakening, and it's red, and then all of a sudden it starts to see a numeric value, -4, -3, -2, and you can see right now it is still -1.24, but the moving average is -248. So we do have a breakout. It did take out the highs, and it's showing that the relative strength's improving. Weakening is red, improving is fuchsia, outperforming bright blue, and starting to lag would be dark blue. So we have 4 stages of the market. And all you have to do, if you understand, if you've taken the video instructions for the person's market catcher, it's not only a great, phenomenal tool to find out the relative strength, but also what phase the market is currently in for most traders who trade equities. And that's what's on the radar screen. Now, if I want to correlate, and that's the topic right now, if I wanted to correlate from weakest to strongest, I can just double click on the column with strength or even the moving average component. So right now, that would show us that the strongest relative to the overall market in terms of percentage change, ironically, is UNG, which is natural gas ETF. So second place would be OIH, the oil service sector. However, if we take a look at this, since we've just correlated this, we have it's kind of dark blue, and as you can see, the moving average is red. What does that signify? Let's take a look. What it's signifying as far as relative strength is, while it is gone up, what is happening is that at this point in time, the market or the relative strength, the blue, it's starting to weaken. It's not generating a sell signal per se, it's just stalling. Now the overall market might be going up, and this segment of the market is stalling, and that's what it's sharing with you. So we get concerned on a few things. We want to look for buying opportunities when a market goes down, when a market sector goes down, but all of a sudden, as it's moving down, if the relative strength is starting to improve, it might tell us that it may not fall much further, and it may present some buying opportunities. We would at this point be watching and paying attention to, if I can give you this example right here, we would be paying attention. And if we just draw a line straight down, notice that the relative strength prior to the absolute low, the relative strength's getting a little bit better, and the volume indicator, the momentum's starting to move up. I didn't put the on-balance volume in focus, so let me do that right now. All right, so now we can kind of compare an apple to an apple and find out, not only on the radar screen, but if we understand what the color coordination is and correlate those columns by double clicking, you can then open up a chart and get a better assessment of a trade situation. So now we have right now a market, the oil service sector, it's falling like a rock. It's moving against those lows. And if we take a look and draw that straight line, you will notice that the momentum of the volume is changing. The volume analysis is moving up. The relative strength's not weakening. The on-balance volume is not showing a whole lot. In fact, as you can see the difference, on-balance volume is moving straight, and our volume indicator has actually gone in from negative red to positive green, and the indicator is pointing up. It's sharing the fact that there is accumulation going on in the market at this low. So what I will be looking for, and if we expand upon this, and now what's really cool, which will be on the radar screen pretty shortly, is this situation right here. We have a scenario which is called a market trapped between a last conditional change resistance and a last conditional change support. We have a buy signal right here. The day that generated a buy signal, what did it do? It closed above the last conditional change with appreciation of relative strength on an uptick as volume's moving up. We may look at buying a pullback and looking for better buying opportunities in the market, and I would say, hey, if I've got an improved relative strength and an uptick in volume and a breakout of an LCC buy signal, this would give me a heads up to start looking at establishing a position. And then, of course, there it goes. And so this concept of being able to spot opportunities before the rest of the world is what we're looking at. Why? Well, for one, we would be starting to get into positions with better defined risk, number one, confirmation that the relative strength's improving, and the volume is moving. Now, here's a situation where we get the doji right there, the high close doji, which is painted in orange. And at this point in time, if I can draw that straight line, the market's already started to see an accumulation and a breakout. And as you can tell, the market keeps moving up and up and up and up. Now let's look at this area in here. As the market starts to move up, it generates a sell signal. The relative strength and the moving average has turned red, which means that it's lost its relative strength. The volume is crossed over and the momentum of the volume is turned red. So you have now a situation where you did have a decent buying, and now you have a situation where there might be some selling pressure going on. And this was just a short-term trend trade opportunity. And guess what happens? Then the market moves lower. And the rest is history, and we go through the same thing over again. This is kind of the market environment that I believe in 2018 and beyond we are going to see as computers take over, and you can see it's kind of just rotation. So instead of buying the high and getting stopped out, we're looking to buy the low and take profits and then maybe switch positions. But this is, I guess, in essence, a rotational grind in its purest form. So this would all help us at this point in time be able to, this tool, if we understand what the indicator's doing and what the color coordination is doing, help us a little better off in our trade selection. That's the radar screen. Now, by double-clicking on those columns, you can change your label rows, you can change the stocks within the label rows alphabetically, but not the label rows. I know we went over this earlier, but if you have a particular label and you say option expiration, and you type that in, notice what you've done. You've done data request not enabled for this account. So if you do a lot of typing of what might make sense to you, you need to make a label row. So just right click on your thing, hit insert label row, tap on it, and then say option expiration. And if you do option expiration, guess what? You separate and you don't bog your machine down, because every time you turn on and off your machine, it's going to be looking for option expiration, going to the servers, and the more you have, the more you're limiting your you're asking for more resources to find that stock symbol that doesn't exist. So make sure that you do separate, if you are going to title something and make your own customizable list, that you use a label row. By double clicking on symbol, you are going to collate between label rows. You're not going to be able to assort the and change the label row listing, but you can within high volume, low volume, average true range. You can correlate between strength of the market, daily high close signals, daily signals, weekly high close dojis. You'll be able to collate everything to bring it to the top. So if I want to find out right now what might generate new fresh weekly high close dojis, or what is in a high close doji, again, Archer Daniels Midland is not blinking because it was in a high close doji. If it's blinking, it's in or going to form a high close doji. So this is Bungie. If you notice, Bungie's not blinking. ADM not blinking. But what is? TJ Maxx is blinking. So TJ Maxx formed a doji last week. That's the blue. Let's take a look at this. All right, so TJ Maxx has a blue, and it's now above last week. So it's warning us right now by just collating, it is warning us that we are generating an opportunity between now and the close of Friday. If it generates a close here, you may want to take a double check at that, look at the relative strength, and see how things look. And that's where we're going to find the best trade opportunities and make our job a lot easier to sift through the market. So one of the function that I wanted to bring up to everybody is the fact that we are having and do have for VIPs, the last conditional trend indicator for VIPers will have the availability of this function on your radar screen. It is currently on my radar screen. We talked about this earlier about the scans with the trilogy, buy and sell scans. So not only will you have those two scans for additional filtering of better buy or sell signals if you want, but also to find out if we are getting brand new buy and sell signals, not just by a breakout on a buy signal, but is it a buy signal that's breaking out above a last conditional change resistance? And if it is, then it will say, as you can see on your screen, it will say last conditional change bullish breakout, or bearish breakout, or neutral. Let's take a look at all three classifications and express what this really means. Okay. First and foremost, if we generate a buy signal, so here's Celgene, and if we generate a buy signal, Celgene will be giving us a buy signal, but it will be above a last conditional change, a gray candle. Well, here is the gray candle. So, quite frankly, we want to see the market get above that gray candle. Since you have resistance which caused the market to go down, and just because there might be a buy signal under the market, I would be more impressed if the market closed greater than that shelf of resistance. I'm sure you would as well, right? So that's what that is going to alert us. Yes, there's a PPS buy, but I want to know, is it a PPS buy signal, or is it a buy signal that was generated and it broke out above maybe a last conditional change candle? And that might give me, like, for example, here's a last conditional change candle, here's a PPS buy signal there, and it's flashing warning now. So I may want to buy it right on the close, and guess what? The next day, gap higher, and then I can make a better determination of what I want to do on the trade, right? So a lot of times what's happening is we get these signals, there's warning us, the next day it opens up sharply higher and we can't participate. By the way, many of you may notice that we had something going on with WIN, and we posted into the weekly thoughts and observations, and we had a nice little buy signal, but it gapped higher and it broke out. So it broke out and it just gapped higher, and it kept going and it kept going and it kept going and it kept going. So again, I think we're going to have a way of competing against the institutions who may have better information within their own organization if they're going to be starting to accumulate positions in a given stock for their clientele. Somebody, and I'm not saying it's rampant, but in my humble opinion, somebody knows what's going to happen into the market, and that's the footprint that maybe volume helps share, or the relative strength, or the momentum. Somebody knew that wind was looking good at this point in time. You can clearly see we had a high close doji on a daily basis. The market was getting ready to break out above pivot and the last conditional change, and then it gapped higher and went. So if we can get information before the close and get in, I think then we get and beat the odds of the market, and that's where we're going to have that kind of opportunity with the radar screen and qualify better signals. So between bullish and bearish or neutral. So let's take a look at, just because it's there, Zos. What does neutral mean? Real simple. Neutral means it may be generating, and again, excuse me, this was a 60-minute chart. Let's look at the daily. Keep things together. So what does it mean, neutral? Well, if it generates a buy signal, which right now it disappeared, but let's say we generated a PPS buy signal here, or a high closed doji. It's stuck between a support and the resistance. So it's neither bearish nor bullish. It's just in neutral territory. So it's between a support and a resistance, and it'll qualify whether or not that this is something that we want to, it's cleared resistance or the last conditional change. And that's what that neutral will do for us. It'll give us a lot better reading of where the market buy signal is in relationship to near-term support and resistance. Here's Delta Airlines, and this is a classic example of exactly what I just have mentioned. Number one, we can see the resistance, the last conditional change, because it's gray. Now, if you don't like that gray, you can change that color and customize that. And this is white. Gray means resistance, white means support. Clearly, the market is trapped between resistance and support. Is this in a trend breakout mode? No, so therefore it's neutral. And that's why it would be listing right now a neutral reading. So those are how we're going to help investors learn how to take better trades and follow through, both on relative strength, if it's performing or outperforming, and what sectors are looking good. And we get these buy signals, how do we filter out all of this noise? Because in this day and age, computerized trading, sector rotation, this is not something that is going to just disappear. It's going to become more advanced. And if you think that computers and institutions are going to stop using computers for generating trades and order execution, I don't think anyone thinks that. I think if I polled you right now, you all think it's going to get even more sophisticated with artificial intelligence computer programming as the years develop. We want to be on top, have something that's as good, if not better, or at least compete with those institutions. Because I don't think using a simple 5 and 20-day moving average is going to be efficient as we move forward in this advanced computerized era of finance. So with that said, I wanted to make sure that we covered some of that, and I want to teach you how to maybe customize your own industry watch page list. And the simplest way to do it is just to go down and right-click on a blank spot, hit Insert a Label Row, and then you can customize your own symbol list. All right? Now, let me go in and share with you how to better utilize the radar screen so that you don't overload your system, but you may be able to get better trade signals with multiple time frames. All right, you can see where I have 426 stocks, but on short term I have 384. Plus futures short term. So I have a lot of quotes. If I click on this and I go copy, because the radar screen at this point is a window, copy window, and I scroll this over, and I hit paste window. So now I have a new window, and it, as you can see, is loading, and it may take a minute to load, but what I want to do is I want to create a new window. So let's go to stocks. Let me go all the way up, and as you can see, it's starting to fill in, but let me go up to just, as you go up, go up, go up more, and all I want to do is you get to there and then hit delete. So now I've reduced the amount of stocks on a secondary window. Let's do the same thing over here. We're going to go up, we're going to go up, we're going to go up, keep going, and sector ETF, short term, there we go, and hit delete. So now all I've just done is created I can keep the short term and the long term up. So let's say I want to watch for intraday, and if I change this interval, I go up to my interval, change interval, which might be out of focus, so let me move down the screen here and go through here with you. All right, here we go. So the change interval is this icon. It looks like a clock with a bar chart. If I click on that, I want to go to 15-minute charts. So if I want to have just 15-minute signals to confirm possibly my daily information. Remember, this is my daily person's market catcher, and this radar screen tells me the information I want to know. At the end of the day, pivot trend is up. Daily signals, what's generating a brand new daily PPS? What's generating a brand new last conditional change signal? It's not just a buy, the market closing greater than a last conditional change, that would be important. I also want to know what's doing it on a 15-minute. So if I think there's going to be maybe some sector rotation going into utilities, for example, I want to see if this thing starts to change, if that we're starting to see more money pour into utilities, for an example, and I want to look at this, then I would want to change that interval and say, show me or alert me to when we get a new 15-minute, and as you notice, I just changed it from 60, so you can change it, and you can have two radar screens up at the same time on one desktop, in one workspace. Keep in mind, when you do something like this, do not have very many quotes up, make your own customized list. But now I can, on one single page, have an idea and again, collate from top to bottom, right? Collate top to bottom. Today, financials and utilities. We are starting to see in the utilities. Now, if you notice here, my symbol window link is green. I created a new one. I now have to make it linked. So click on green. As soon as I do that and I click on utilities, everything falls into place down below. So here's an interesting situation. This is the XLU. I have a 15-minute chart, and it showed me we're in a buy and we're breaking out above a last conditional change. So we are getting a bullish bias breakout in the utility space right now. So whether I want to change that to a 60-minute or 15-minute, I can now collate to find out what sectors are starting to move and break out, and are they breaking out with a what? A last conditional change move. And that will give me a better way of looking at the market, quantify my signals, and narrow it down so when I think there's rotation out of one product and there's a rotation happening in a new sector, I can be with that new sector early in the phase, which, number one, reduces my risk exposure, gets a better cost average for the pricing because I'm not buying something high, I'm buying before it moves, and I have confirmation that the market is breaking out in that sector. And that's how you would do it with putting up two radar screens. Just remember, the key here is not to have too many quotes on that secondary radar screen. It will bog your system down. So we want to make and I just want you to learn how to make your computer more efficient, and always, always, always save your workspace. Now, this is a window. this is my workspace. If I wanted to save this workspace, I just created it, right? So I want to immediately go and I want to save the workspace. Because if something crashes, I want this up exactly how it is. So as soon as you do something that you like, save it, all right? And that's going to be, I think, a godsend. So when something does crash, you know that it's going to be there, all right? This whole indicator is going to, with these radar screen and the columns, help you qualify the signals, the buy and the sells, much more efficiently and definitely better. And I think between the passive ETF sector rotation in 2018, this should be an awesome, powerful package to help you determine better buy and sell signals. What I want you to do is to learn how to keep your system from breaking down. First, clean up all those bad signals, get rid of all those old symbols, and again, I think you're going to get one of the best trading experiences. And when we get this, the algo optimizer, and I know we covered this before, this was kind of something that was a little bit interesting that we keep sharing with the trading room community, is that this thing has just been, again, you can create your own little watch list for those that are interested in having a few stocks, and you can see them on your watch list, and then create a page on your algo optimizer so that you can see, is the thing long? And this is that Apple trade that we've been sharing in the room. There's the stop, and the thing has just been long, and it won't break down. What's really neat is that here's the last conditional change. We haven't created a new last conditional change yet. In other words, it hasn't really broken out, but we don't have a sell signal. So looking at the market, we really have an efficient way of determining better trades, stop placement, etc., and we can put things together. Now, I know that in the trading room, we see a lot of different trades, whether it's the E-mini S&Ps, for example, and as you can see with the algo optimizer, even taking S&P trades, whether it's longs and it gets out, it goes long again, it gets out, it goes short, nothing happened, it went long, and we're seeing some upside performance on a day trade. You can, besides creating day trade models and using these to help you to identify if I've optimized my system. If this is a short and that's my stop, hey, this is your profit target. It might not happen. And so the same concept goes with the market or individual equities. Now, here's an interesting situation that for earnings, someone had asked, John, what do you see for Netflix? And Netflix was darn neutral. In fact, the system was long. It had gotten out and was flat ahead of earnings. And then the market went gapped up. Now, here's an interesting situation. The system went short. Its equity curve is pretty good. So whether the short works or not, it did not take that huge move to the upside in Netflix. And we'll see how this performs. But the algo optimizer is going to help us to determine pretty decent entries, exits, stop symbols, and it's going to be, I think, a dynamic tool. I know it's a dynamic tool for all investors. This is one that we picked up in the trading room, which we shared with you guys, if you remember, Palo Alto Networks. It was kind of spooky. It came down. It broke down. It never came in harm's way of the stop. You took a little bit of heat the next day, and look what it did. Trailing stop basis, there's the profit target, and it did what it was supposed to do. It got out on a trailing stop feature. Market traded, actually, if we examine this, the market was trading up, and it immediately stopped out with a profit. So very, very neat thing looking at whether it's Palo Alto, Apple, Netflix, Tesla, crude oil positions, etc., or gold, in fact. And even with gold, which has been an okay product, gold's not really doing much in recent days, but the gold trade, at least it'll identify whether or not you should be long or short the market. Whether it's the mini Dow, which I've put this on many postings on the YouTube channel, it still has a very good performance track record. If you can see the graphics performance, new equity high. It is something, again, a 5-minute chart. This is out of the normal. This is, again, a situation with when we take a look at periodic returns on an average daily basis. I mean, not every day is a winner. We can see that. Some days are better than others, and there are some losers in there. That's a fact. But at the end of the time period, what is the thing doing? This is just a simple model for the month, trading 2 lots only in the mini Dow. And I mean, I have no words for this. It's just fantastic. But even with that great performance, not every trade is a winner. Here's a situation where you got long the market, and what did it do? Got stopped out. Now it's long the market again, and it's starting to kick up into high gear. So anyway, this concludes our time together. I wanted to say, how is everything coming together? We have automated trade systems based on our algorithms, criterias. We have the algo optimizer that I think everyone can, if you do get a license here, this is something that will help you to beat the fastness of the markets of when we see these buy and sell signals that you're, instead of not there that particular moment, or you can't reach for the mouse fast enough, knowing that the signals, what they normally mean, what they're based off. And I think for anyone that understands the work that we've created and have this is an insane, just an awesome, powerful tool. One of the best that I think I keep calling it the pinnacle of my career. Anyway, thank you all very much for all you supporters and friends out there. We appreciate, and I hope that, as we've stated before, a lot of you guys are seeing some tremendous success. Some of you are struggling with just the nomenclature, the new icons, TradeStation, something new for a lot of you. We want to make sure that you get the proper training, and that's why we have these monthly meetings. If there's questions that weren't answered, if you have more questions, simply send them to me by email at jperson@personsplanet.com, and we'll make sure that we get these answers and then post them in the videos. That concludes our time together. I hope you found value in today's educational lesson. Thank you.